Well, the Goods and Services Council, or the GST Council, which has a representative of every state government, has meetings to decide what needs to be taxed and what doesn't need to be taxed. Yesterday was the 50th meeting. Now, the biggest announcement that came out of this meeting was a decision to levy tax on online games or on gambling. Now, they also decided to levy the tax on horse racing and on casinos, but I want to focus specifically on online gamings because this one is massive. Now, over the last 24 hours, everyone was waiting for clarity from the Finance Ministry, which in a press conference, the Finance Minister said would be released. But from what we know so far, remember, the Indian online gaming industry is huge. It includes online rummy, it includes fantasy cricket, and it includes games that you can bet on. These were rules, of course, that were released by the Ministry of IT some time ago, where they basically said that any game that you can access via your computer or your phone qualifies as a digital or an online game. Now, online games that involve money in terms of bettings or winnings now come under the purview of this new goods and services tax. That's 28%. Up until now, there was a tax of 18% that you would pay on the fees that the platform charged you for using the platform to play your game. That was a really small tax. Also, on anything that you won, if you played a game, you would have to pay income tax. So that's a separate tax. Now, the income tax continues. From what we understand, if this is a 28% tax that would be levied on the entire bet. So let's assume you went into a rummy game or you went into fantasy sports or fantasy cricket with 100 rupees. There would be a flat 28% tax that would be charged on that entire 100 rupees. And you would be left, from what we understand, with 72 rupees to actually play your game. Now, Ace has not gone down well, really, with many people who are part of that gaming industry. Let me give you an example. Ashni Grover, who is the founder of Bharat Pay, who's also a shark on Shark Tank, very popular, has also started his own online gaming company, actually put out a statement on Twitter saying RIP to the gaming industry. This will be the death of the gaming industry. He was quite, quite sharp about it. He pointed out a similar example. He said, if the government, and I'm quoting him from his tweet, if the government is thinking that people will put in 100 rupees and play only for 72 rupees as a pot after 28 rupees gets deducted, then that's not going to be okay. He also said that if they win, say 54 rupees after platform fees, they have to pay 30% TDS on that, which is going to kill this industry altogether. He then went on to say that founders of startups will now need to get into politics to be heard because this is completely unfair. Now, why has the GST Council made this decision? According to reports, and I'm reading out of the Indian Express particularly, it basically says that there were a lot of views within the council that online gaming and betting was becoming very addictive among children and young people, and the government needed to do something to step in and curb it. Now, the finance minister, Mr. Nirmala Sitharaman, has said particularly this was not an attempt to kill the industry, but there was a moral question of why there was this gaming, which was making such a lot of money, not being taxed on the same level as some essential services, and there had to be some parity that needed to be brought in on that. Now, let's take a look at the size of this industry. Again, according to, this is an EY and a FICCI report, transaction-based games is what they're being called, grew at 26% in India. And it's expected to exceed $1.5 billion as revenue altogether, all of these gaming platforms together in the year 2022. It was expected to reach $5 billion in the year 2025. Now, there is an argument with this new tax that is unlikely to happen anymore. Now, growing at the rate that it's growing, the industry in the country grew at a compounded annual growth rate, or a CAGR of 38%. That's between 2017 and 2020, outstripping any other country in the world. So China apparently the same grew at about 8% in the same period. The US is growing at 10%. So in India, this is a massive industry. Now, let me give you an example. When you watch IPL, which is the most expensive space to advertise on, the advertisements in the middle of the IPL are all gaming. They're all either rummy or they are, fantasy cricket, and they're being endorsed by some of the biggest, brand ambassadors as well. So there is obviously a lot of money in the online gaming industry, and the GST Council now has come down fairly hard with this 28% uniform tax on online gaming that will hit all of this online gaming. And now we'll have to see if the associations that represent these platforms are able to make a representation to the GST Council and seek some kind of reprieve. Now, the other thing that happened that I mentioned, of course, was the derbies, the horse racing, that now also will face a flat 28% tax on the bet itself. So this is not on the winnings, but on the bet itself. The other thing that happened, of course, is the tax now is also included in casinos. Remember, there are some states which have a larger presence of casinos. Goa, for example, had suggested that the tax be on the gross gaming revenue of the casinos, and online gaming be taxed only on platform fees. But this is the decision of the GST Council right now, 28% tax on the entire bet for horse racing, for casinos, and for online gaming.